you know, and so no, you know, it was just sort of it wasn't something I was looking for. It was something that kind of, I met some people, they said to go to one. I went to one with a camera I had from this summer class in filmmaking I was taking, and filmed a little. And even at that time, I didn't think I want to make a film. I was just like, oh, this is cool, this looks good, this is an assignment for this one filmmaking class I took one summer, thinking I might want to get into film. And so, I don't know, so it was really a revelation to walk into a ballroom and kind of not know, you know, I didn't know what was going on the first time, and so were these people women, were they men, what were people yelling out, what were the trophies, who were the folks, and I think I met Venus at that first ball. I think she was at that ball at the community center.
Wow.
And so it was like exciting because I didn't know so much about trans people or cross-dressing or certainly not voguing. And so as a young queer person, as a person who was at that time sort of, you know, working on my gender and sexual identity and figuring it out, it was really exciting to feel like, wow, these are people and events that are pushing the boundaries.
Right. Wow. Amazing. Tell us a little bit about this documentary, A New York Gay and Transgender Black and Latino Ball documentary.
Which one?
Paris is Burning.
What do you want to know?
Okay. Let's start with this. When exactly, in between what years did you start and finish filming Paris is Burning?
So I first went to a ball, like I said, it was the summer of '85. And what I did after that was, because I didn't have film background or film equipment or anything like that,
right.
I would just go to, I mean, I was just, as a photographer, I'd go. And I went to a lot of balls in '85 and '86 just with a camera. As you know, a lot of people brought cameras at the time. Anybody was welcome. I went, I photographed, I began to get to know people. And I really, at the beginning, I thought I should, just take photographs. It was very beautiful, and the people were very beautiful, and the events were very beautiful. And I was interested in, as a young photographer, what was going on in my city. I was certainly interested in people who were, like, crafting their own identities and, had a strong statement about who they were. That's something that really interested me. And so I was going to balls, and then a friend named Meg McLaughlin, who'd been working in independent film, said, "Do you think this is a movie?" And I sort of felt like, yeah, maybe it was a movie, only because what was remarkable about balls was movement, performance, and then, of course, people who have stories to tell. And as you know from Paris is Burning and just from being around the ball world, a lot of people are really storytellers, and they have a lot to say about their own life, about their values, about the U.S., about fashion, about dance. And so the more I hung out, the more I felt like, wow, this is really a story about America, about an American subculture, about Black and Latino gay men, drag queens, trans women, to a certain extent in that era, butches. There weren't trans men that I was aware of. And I just, it felt like, like a big story about everything I cared about, everything that interested me. And the more I got to know people, the more I thought, well, let me try, and maybe I could make a film. But like I said, I didn't have, my education was like this one summer class. So what I did at that point was in '86. It was February of '86. I sold my car, and I borrowed a little money, and we shot this one ball, which was the Paris is Burning ball, in February of '86. And I remember when it was because it was on my birthday, and I turned 23.
Amazing.
At that ball. And so we shot this one ball, and then with that footage and with a lot of the audio interviews, like taped interviews that I've done, I made a 5-minute clip. And that was done sometime in '86. And I was applying for grants. I was trying to get money to shoot a film. Now, you have to know that back in that era, now you could make a film with a phone. You could make a phone with a little video camera. You could borrow a video camera. And people are making films, like that.
Everywhere.
Now, then, there wasn't anything like that. I mean, video cameras only belonged to big news stations, And film cameras were very hard to operate. They were expensive. You had to buy the footage. You had to process the footage. It was very technical and very pricey. So if you were going to make a film, you really had to go raise money. That's the only way to do it in that era. So a lot of people said, make a trailer, make a short piece which will show people what you're trying to do. That's what I did. And the way we got the money to really shoot the film was I had a friend named Mike Moon who was working at WNYC TV, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was like WNYC Radio, but it was the TV station. And he was working there, and he was making my little VHS tapes that I was making, this 5-minute trailer that I'd made about the ball world that I would show to people to try and get money. And he showed it to his boss, and she showed it to her boss, who was the head of the station. And that guy's a guy named Madison Davis Lacey. He was one of the producers of Eyes on the Prize. He directed a film about Hattie McDaniel, the actor. He's an African-American director and producer, also a professor now. Anyway, he saw my trailer, and he really liked it. And he said, what do you want to do with it? And I said, I think I'd like to make a short film, because I've never made a film. I'm not a filmmaker. I'm 23, and I'm trying to make a film. And he said, I really like it. Come back to me with a budget for a feature film. So I went and I made a budget, and I went back to him, and he said, okay, I'm going to give you half of this so you can go shoot the film. So that was, like, insanely great. I mean, that was, of course, after 200 people said, no, can't give you money, don't like it, can't help you, you're not a filmmaker. But he said, I believe in this, and I really like what I see, and I can relate to this. And so in the summer of '87, we shot for, I think it was 6 weeks, and mostly in balls, on the pier, and then interviews in people's homes. And, all that material that you see was mostly shot then, with that one, except for that one ball in '86. And then the trick was, all the money was gone because it took the money he gave us to shoot. Because you had to have a professional cinematographer, you had to send your footage to a lab, you had to process the footage, that.
How long did it actually take for the editing process?
So the editing process took, basically we finished in '87. We didn't finish until sometime in 1990. And one of the reasons it took a long time was that it actually just takes a long time to take 70 hours of footage and make a structure that's good. The other reason it took a long time is that we didn't have the money. So we had to go, apply for grants. In the end, we did get some finishing money from a show called Arena at BBC 2, and that happened again. That was like very circuitous. It was like I knew someone who was working for David Byrne. She showed it to David Byrne. He liked it. He said, I know this guy at the BBC. And that was the guy named Nigel Finch, who was a gay man, a British man, who had, just as Madison Davis Lacey had been kind of a pioneer in telling African-American stories, Nigel was a pioneer in terms of telling some gay stories. And he liked what he saw, and he gave us some money to edit. And even then, we had to keep raising money to get that print with the credit sequence to go to festivals. So, I mean, this is a completely normal story for documentary. To this day, most people who make documentaries, I don't know if you know this guy, Elegance Giovanni, is making a film called Pier Kids. He was a pier kid who then joined the Marines and learned to shoot footage. Maybe learned to shoot a gun, but he learned to shoot footage in the Marines, and he's now making a movie called Pier Kids about his experience as a pier kid.
Wow,
he's gradually making this movie. He had a Kickstarter. He's continuing to raise the money. That's just how it is. I mean, I don't know anybody. Maybe Michael Moore gets all his money from one source, but when we go out to make a documentary, we have to raise it bit by bit by bit, and that's one of the reasons it takes a long time. So anyway, the film was completed. We completed a first draft, a first version in 1990. It went to 2 gay film festivals, one here in New York, one in San Francisco. And then in the beginning of 1991, it went to Sundance, and we were able to raise the money just before then to have a complete print. And even though it won a Sundance Grand Jury Prize, the distributors didn't want to pick it up. I think it was just too scary for them. It was, very subcultural, very black, very Latino, very gay, very trans. They just didn't think anybody would want to see it. And then Karen Cooper of this theater called the Film Forum said, I'll show it for 2 weeks. And as a result of her showing it for 2 weeks, and some critics writing about it, people started to know about it, including some ball kids, including a lot of queer kids, including a lot of people who weren't queer. And it did really well, and it was in the trades as being a movie that people were seeing. And as a result of that, we had some distribution offers, and Miramax picked it up. They closed it down and then reopened it later in '91 on a lot of screens in a lot of cities. And there were also some places, some other countries it was shown in as well, not through Miramax. So it was very surprising because you work on a film for 7 years, and most of the time I didn't think it would be done. I was working jobs as legal proofreader and house painter and things like that, and getting grants and just trying to, gosh, I hope I'm going to be able to finish this. I really want to be able to finish this. Then you're able to finish it, and then it actually gets a distributor and becomes, for a documentary, a hit film. That was, nobody could have predicted that. And I think, my favorite thing about that was that, I feel like in an era when there weren't very many queer films, and there weren't gay films, and there weren't lesbian films, it began to show people that you as a viewer, say you're not gay, you can see a story about queer people and you can relate to it because guess what? We're human beings.
Right.
And then the other thing that was good was I felt people in the ball world had certainly, for the most part, not seen their own faces, in the media. And I think it was affirming, both to ball walkers and people in houses and to other queer people of color who, there just weren't images out there. Now there are so many more images in the media. Now you can put things up on YouTube and make your own clip or your own movie, but then it was unusual for there to be any gay film images. And so I feel like that film, it's now, 24 years ago it was released, but it was part of beginning to change what media images we see of ourselves, and for those of us who are filmmakers, we're able to make about ourselves. And I'm proud of that.
Wow. Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
Okay, now tell me a little bit, how was it being, in these Harlem balls, being Jennie Livingston back then?
It was exciting. It was wonderful. The balls were very welcoming for anybody who, paid their pay your ticket and you go in. And so I felt I was welcome. I was learning all the time. I was really excited about the people I met. If you think about people like Dorian and Willie and Venus and Junior and, Freddie, Saul, these are all, people you'd want to talk to, people who have a lot to say, Pepper, brilliant people. And so in terms of meeting people, I really wanted to hear what people had to say. I was excited about their perceptions, excited about what they had to say, both about their own experience, about the ball world, and also about America. I felt like the ball world had a lot to say about mainstream life, and that excited me. In terms of being at the balls, obviously, it's thrilling. They're amazing performers, and the balls are very exciting, and they're very heated. And they can be very boring at times, too, obviously. But, I just felt like I was a young New Yorker. I was new to New York. And it was like this sense of, this is amazing, and I can't believe I get to go, and people want to talk to me, and they have stuff to say. And I really hope I can finish this film, but I'm really, I was excited to be listening and watching and welcome and and also it was a very hard time in the city. The AIDS crisis was raging, certainly downtown and uptown. I was also an AIDS activist with ACT UP, and so there was this sense that the struggle of the community, particularly in the ball community. Like one of the first times I ever met Junior LaBeija was at a Brooklyn ball where he was giving a eulogy for a queen named Margot Princess, and who had died of AIDS. And it was like a sermon. It was really beautiful. It was really loving. It was clearly meant to give a lot of sustenance to a community that was struggling with a lot of debt. and a lot of pain. And so that fact that, the balls were fun and they were